Hello, I'm Laura Wharf, and this is Ian, and this is for our Functional Mobility Practical exam here with the Egoscue Institute. We're going to do our top 10 exercises here for this program. So Ian, we're going to start with the hip crossover stretch. So go ahead and come down onto the floor, and you're going to lie on your back with your knees bent and your feet hip distance apart with your feet pointing straight ahead. Make sure maybe you can scoot over a little bit towards the wall so we can get your full view in here. All right, so I'll invite you to extend both arms out to either sides at shoulder level. So we have just a restriction here a bit with the wall to make sure that Ian gets his palms facing down. So just for the purposes of today, we can lower that arm down just a little bit here, palms facing down. Good. So keeping the shoulders, the elbows, and the wrists level, so we can drop this arm down your right side just a little bit more. Good. All right. So with your feet pointing straight ahead, hip distance apart, let's cross your right ankle over top of your left knee. And take a couple of deep breaths here. So we're looking that the pelvis is neutral. And when you're ready, take a deep breath in, and you can rotate the pelvis so that we're going to drop that right foot down over to the left side so that the right foot actually touches the floor and the outer part of the left thigh is also touching the floor. All right, so this E-cise is the hip crossover stretch with the palms facing down, and we're holding this E-cise here for 1 minute. So for the purposes of today's test, I'll invite you just to come back up to the center so that we can try the same thing on the other side. So position the feet both pointing straight ahead once again, and let's take the left ankle, cross it over the right knee, and the pelvis is neutral. When you're ready, take a breath, and we'll let the knees come over to the other side. So the outer right thigh now is coming down to the floor, and the left foot touching the floor. So we're looking to keep the upper back and the back of the shoulders on the floor, and you can turn your head in the opposite direction and allow for some slow, deep abdominal breaths as you hold this E-cise for 1 minute. So great exercise to focus on the spinal rotation and feeling the hip stretch here. So we're actually using the hip muscles of the left to move the knee away from you. Good. And so when you are ready, you can come back up towards the center and reposition both feet on the floor. And that completes our hip crossover stretch. Our next exercise is called the Crocodile. The Crocodile, Ian, go ahead and lie flat on your back with both legs extended outwards. So your feet are hip distance apart. With the feet flexed, we want to respect the 90-degree angles here of the body. So we'll go ahead and invite the arms to come out 90-degree angle as well, with the shoulders down. So part your legs just a little bit more so that your ankles, your knees, and your hips here are in line. And this is a great exercise to promote the alignment and the function between our ankle, our knee, our hip, all the way up to our shoulder. So here, go ahead and take your right heel and place it in between the big toe and the second toe of your left foot. And I'll ask you here to contract your thigh muscles and your gluteal muscles, and while keeping your upper back and the shoulders on the floor, we'll rotate the pelvis, turning the legs towards the left side. So we're lifting that right glute and right hip up off the floor. The feet stay flexed, your thighs and gluteal muscles stay slightly engaged and contracted here. And this is an E-cise that we are going to hold for 1 full minute. Shoulders stay on the ground. You can turn your head in the opposite direction. And after 1 minute on this side, we'll repeat the same thing on the other side. So go ahead and come back into the starting position. Reposition your feet hip distance apart. So part your feet just a little bit more here, Ian. Good. And we'll do that on the other side. So let's take the left heel and place it in between the big toe and the second toe. Contract your thigh muscles and your gluteal muscles. And then go ahead and lift your left hip off the floor here as we rotate the pelvis towards the right side. And contract your thighs and your glutes. Let's try to keep the upper back and the back of the shoulders on the floor, and the head turns in the opposite direction. So do you notice a difference from the right side to the left side? And this is an exercise that can show us where we have our asymmetries and a difference in rotation on the left to the right. And as we practice this exercise, we'll start to notice that the feeling of both sides is similar, which shows us that those asymmetries are starting to rebalance and correct themselves. Thanks, Ian. So come on back to the center. And that is our E-cise called the Crocodile. Third exercise that we're going to do today is the standing windmill. So let's go ahead and come to a standing position, and we'll use a wall surface. Standing with your heels, your hips, and your shoulders up against the wall surface. The feet start at hip distance apart. We're going to do 3 different foot positions here today. So the feet are pointing straight ahead. And let's extend the arms outwards to the sides in a windmill position, just to the level of your shoulders. So the shoulders and the arms are touching the wall here. And then lean to the right sides like you're doing a windmill, so your lower body stays in exactly the same position. So it's a torso lateral flexion, and then we'll come back to the center. And we'll go side to side here 5 times each side, which is a great exercise to reduce the rotation that we find in the hips and the torso, and loads the load joints from the ankles, the knees, the hips, and the shoulders evenly. So notice as you do this that you're pressing evenly into both feet, standing strong with your knees straight. Good. And so after we've done 5 times each side on the windmill like this with the feet at hip distance apart, go ahead and release your arms down to your sides and step your feet about 1.5 feet apart. We're doing 3 foot positions here in this exercise. And extend the arms out to shoulder level again, palms facing forward. And when you're ready with the heels and the hips and the shoulders up against the wall, let's do that windmill again, 5 times to each side, bending to the right and to the left in a nice, slow, smooth, controlled rhythm. And you can follow your breath as you do that. Let your breath move. And get a sense to see if you feel a difference on the right side to the left side. Keeping the feet evenly planted in the ground. And once we've done 5 times on each side with the foot position at 1.5 feet apart, we'll take the feet to 2.5 feet apart. So relax your arms. Let's step a little bit wider. The feet stay pointing ahead, your heels against the wall, your hips against the wall, and the shoulders as well. Extend the arms up level to the shoulders, and let's do that again. So 5 times each side. Again, helping to reduce that rotation that we might find through the torso and the pelvis, and loading the joints evenly on the right and the left, feeling that stability start to build from the ankle, knees, hips up to the shoulders. And once we've done 5 times each side for the windmill, we come back to that starting position with feet hip distance apart. Relax the arms, step together. So where you began, heels against the wall, feet straight. And so that's nice alignment with your ankles, your knees, your hips, and your shoulders on the wall. Extend the arms out to the sides one last time, shoulder height, and we'll do 5 times each side, windmill once more. So we come back to that hip neutral position. Slow, rhythmic breaths. Breathing is such an important component to all of our exercises. Good. Once we've done our 5 times each side, that completes our standing windmill exercise. So the next movement here we've got is our standing arm circles. We're going to stand, so Ian, just step forward from the wall a little bit here. So the feet are positioned at hip distance apart, both pointing straight ahead. And we're standing with a nice tall posture, lining up our ankle, knee, and hip and shoulder. We'll elevate the arms out to shoulder height one more time. And we're going to use what we call the golfer's grip here. So the fingertips, the finger tops of your knuckles here will bend, and place the fingertips just on the pads of the palms of your hands. So the arms are at shoulder height. Good. So we'll draw the shoulder blades down and in. So a little bit of a shoulder blade retraction there, scapular retraction. Good. So that stability is happening there through the upper back. And let's start those circles to the front. We're doing 40 circles to the front, about 6-inch circles here. Good. So we continue standing tall, encouraging you to breathe in a nice rhythmic way. Good. Now once we've done those 40 circles to the front, relax the arms down, and we'll externally rotate the arms. We'll go in the other position, this time circles to the back. So the fingertips are bent once again, fingertips to the pads of your hands, and the arms at shoulder height. A little scapular retraction. So this is working not only the stability of the upper back, but also creating that bilateral function of the lumbar muscles on the right and the left. And promotes nice tall posture here to get our shoulders and our hips working together. Once we've done 40 circles to the back, that completes our standing arm circles. Our next exercise is the static extension position. So I'm going to invite you, Ian, to come down onto all fours once again onto the mat. And from that tabletop position, we'll position the knees right underneath the hips and the hands right under the shoulders, so the fingers are pointing straight ahead, your toes are pointing straight back. So this is going to promote our lumbar and our thoracic extension. So go ahead now and walk your hands forward about a hand's length forward, so maybe about 4 to 5 inches or so. Good. So now what we'll do is transfer the weight forwards, like you're leaning again, taking your shoulders over top of the wrists. Good. So the hips are forward of the knees. And see if you can do a scapular retraction here. So you're drawing the shoulders down, you're pinching your shoulder blades together towards one another, and you're allowing a little bit of an arch through the lower back as well. Good. You can drop your head right down, and we hold this E-cise for 2 minutes. Promoting that scapular stability, the lumbar extension with the upper back extension. So once we've held that E-cise for 2 minutes, you can go ahead and sit back to your heels if you need to relax your back a little bit. Relax your elbows and your shoulders, and we'll come on up. So that is our static extension. So our next E-cise is the upper spinal floor twist. So Ian, go ahead and lie down on your right side in a fetal position with your knees bent at about 90 degrees. You can draw the knees up towards you. So here we're looking that the knees each stay even. We'll extend both arms in front about shoulder height. Now Ian's got a little bit of sensitivity through his neck and a bit of a kyphotic spine, so what I'm going to suggest here, just to help support his head and neck, is to give him a cushion to support proper alignment through the cervical spine here. So you can rest your head onto that cushion. Good. Okay, so the knees are nice and straight here, they're level. We're going to go ahead and take that top arm and lift it upwards. This is an upper spinal twist. And allow that arm to come back. Now we're restricted a little bit with the wall just so that we can see with the camera here. So let's take the arm down alongside of the body, which is also a nice alternative. Ian's got a little bit of tightness going on through his shoulders, through the upper back and the neck. So if it's not possible to keep that arm at a 90-degree angle extended, then I've suggested to drop the arm down a little bit lower, but very well aware that we can keep the arms extended with the palms facing up. Okay, so this is promoting the spinal rotation through the upper back, the stability also, stabilization through the pelvic muscles. The upper spinal floor twist is an E-cise that we're holding here today for 1 minute. So you can turn your head also in the opposite direction, Ian. Good. And if that feels okay for your neck, if you feel that that's a little bit too much, bring your head to neutral or back to your starting position. Okay, and notice how that feels through the upper back and the lower back as we are using the muscles of the upper and the lower back to do that twist. And the pelvis is neutral, the knees are still together. And if you prefer, you can either keep that arm here in front of you, or you can take your left hand and place it on top of the top knee here. So you can do either of those positions that feel most comfortable. Sometimes this gives us that tactile feedback that keeps our knees well stacked, one on top of the other. So when you're ready, you can come back to your starting position, into that fetal position. Take a nice deep breath. And then we'll turn and roll onto the other side. So same fetal position, same exercise. You can roll onto your back and then change directions, change sides. Good, so let's draw the knees up a little bit higher. So knees are stacked one on top of the other. Pelvis is neutral, spine is nice and straight. Supporting Ian's head today with a cushion just to keep his upper spine, his cervical spine more supported. So Ian, go ahead and lift that top arm up when you're ready and extend it back so we can keep both arms in full extension at shoulder level. If that feels a little bit too intense for the shoulder, the pectoral area, or your neck today, feel free to drop that arm down a little bit so that we can modify the movement based on how you're feeling today. Your left hand and left arm can stay in extension, or if you prefer, you can take your hand also to your knee just to give you that feedback to allow both knees to stay towards one another. As your body adapts to the position, you feel that stretch through the lower spine, mid-spine, upper spine. You can also let your head turn in the opposite direction if that feels safe for you today. So that is our upper spinal floor twist, E-cise that we're holding for 1 minute. Let's come back to our original position and then come onto your back. Good. And I just realized I'm looking at the order of the exercises here that I missed the crocodile as the second exercise. So I'm going to go ahead and ask Ian to do the crocodile right now. That should have been after the hip crossover stretch, just before the standing windmill here. So Ian, we're going to go ahead and do the crocodile. So we'll lie on your back with the legs. Did we do the crocodile? We did do it. Oh gosh, for some reason I just had a brain blank thinking that we didn't do it. Okay, so we'll omit that part. Upper swizz. We're going to do the assisted hip lift. So the assisted hip lift now. So I'm going to ask you to pivot your body so that your feet are going to be up against the wall or towards the wall, and your head is towards me here. Good. So the assisted hip lift, you bring your bum about 90 degrees. So it depends if your hips lift off the wall. So you can maybe take it just a touch closer and we can make adjustments. So feet are about hip distance apart. And again, Ian's going to use the cushion to support his head just to align his neck position. All right, so we're respecting the 90-degree angles here of the ankles and the knees and the hips. We can part the feet about hip distance apart and then cross the right ankle over top of the left knee. And if the bum lifts off the floor, then we would just scoot the body back a little bit more. All right. So you can extend your arms out to either side at shoulder level. And you're using your hip muscles of your right hip to move that knee away from your torso and towards the wall. And your pelvis is in a nice neutral position. Oops, lift your head just a little bit. I just want to, there we go. So the assisted hip lift is an E-cise that we're going to hold for 1 minute on each side. So go ahead and reposition. So your foot is actually in a flex position here. So we're drawing the toes towards you as the knee moves towards the wall. We'll reposition the foot to the wall, realign yourself, and other side. So left ankle comes to the hip. Good. And this is a position that we do a lot during the day. So if you're sitting cross-legged on a chair, we may notice that we have one hip that is more supple or mobile than the other. This brings that bilateral function of flexibility through the hip rotators. And so again, we're using the hip muscles of the left side to move the knee towards the wall, allowing for deep breaths. And the sacrum is pressed into the floor, the lower back. The back of the shoulders is stabilized nicely against the floor as well. And if that's a little too intense for our clients, again, they can take the hips back a little bit farther to allow for that greater range of motion through the rotators of the hip. So we'll bring that back after 1 minute of holding that E-cise and reposition the feet on the floor, and that completes our assisted hip lift. And the next exercise, Ian, that we're going to do is called the downward dog. So go ahead and come onto all fours on the mat again, with your hands underneath your shoulders, hands pointing straight ahead, and the hips over the knees, feet straight. Good. So we've got a nice neutral spine here. Ian's spine is nice and long. We're going to curl the toes under, and then go ahead and lift the knees up off the floor and send your hips up and back. So you're pressing your chest towards the thighs here a little bit. So I'm going to just add a couple little points here to assist Ian to get a little bit more of an extension through his spine and to promote a little bit more of lumbar extension. So Ian, go ahead and bend both knees and send your hips up and back a little bit more. So you're pressing away from your hands, and that'll help him get a little bit more extension through the spine. So it really is a full body stretch. Let's spread the fingers just a little bit here and press into the fingers. And we're trying to get even weight on all four limbs of the floor, so the two hands and the 2 feet. We're holding the downward facing dog for 1 full minute. The feet are hip distance apart, which is good. And gradually Ian will be able to extend his legs and straighten the legs so that he's got straight arms and straight legs and a lengthened spine. So without forcing. This is letting gravity do the work, so bringing blood flow into the head and the face, really nourishing. Also for our brain, helps us with greater concentration and focus. Thank you, Ian. So you can go ahead and bring your knees to the floor. If you need to release into a child's pose, feel free to do that. Okay, so that is the downward facing dog. We're going now to lie on our back. So go ahead and lie on your back with your legs extended straight out in front of you. And this is called the supine foot circles and point and flexes. So again, the feet are about hip distance apart. We're lying down. Do you feel like you need a cushion, Ian, for your head? Are you okay? Should be okay? Okay. So go ahead and reach for your right thigh. Draw your right thigh towards your chest here at about a 90-degree angle, so you can support that with your hands. So if his shoulders lifted off the floor, and I can see there's a little bit of strain in Ian's neck, so I will offer you the cushion here to support your head. Does that feel better? You tell me if we don't need it, if you feel good with that. Okay. So we've got about a 90-degree angle here through the right knee, and go ahead and start making clockwise circles with your right ankle, your right foot. So promoting function of our ankle and our knee and our hip joint with these foot circles, bringing mobility through the ankle joint, through the foot and the toes. Nice smooth rotations, and 30 to 40 circles we'll do on one side. And once you've done, we'll say we've done those 40 circles on this side, you can change directions and go the other way. So 40 circles in the other direction. So his opposite leg is staying nice and extended. Shoulders and upper back are on the floor, relaxed. Smooth breaths. And after 40 rotations of that ankle, we will go into the point flexes. Does that feel okay for you? Yeah, all right. Point and flex. So flexion extension of the ankle joint here. And so once you've completed the flexion extension of the ankle, you can release that leg down onto the floor. And realign yourself when you're ready. You can take hold of your opposite thigh. Left thigh draws in, the knees about 90 degrees, and we'll start those ankle circles on this side. Good. So with all of these E-cises, especially with the unilateral exercises that we're doing, we may notice that there's a difference on one side to the other, and these are good things to take note of. As we practice, our mobility and stability starts to improve on the low joints. We begin to respect the 90-degree angles of all of the low joints as well, correcting those muscular imbalances that happen due to those asymmetries and compensations that might be present. And then if you can change directions, ankle circles the other way, and 40 circles each side. Again, just notice the difference if there's some mobility difference on that side. And when you've done those 40 in, you can move into your point flexes. And so for the point flexes, I've been suggesting more around the 20 repetition range for Ian. So 40 circles one direction, 40 circles in the other, and 20 flexions, extensions for the point flexes. So that is the supine foot circles and point flexes. So we're going to come into our final exercise called the air bench. So go ahead, Ian, and come to a standing position. Take your time. And I'm just going to make a little adjustment here with our camera because this is our backdrop, and so we've got a more stable wall. And so while I'm adjusting the camera, this is an exercise that I'll invite you to put your shoes on. So we do shoes with the air bench. So as Ian is putting his shoes on, we're just making a little adjustment here so we can see this wall. And so Ian, let's, for the air bench, let's see if I can see you there. Okay. So we're going to do this position with the feet at about hip to shoulder distance apart. The feet are pointing straight ahead. Walk them far enough forward, and your hips and shoulders will be against the wall. And you can go ahead and slide yourself down the wall so that the hips and the shoulders are touching the floor. And your knees are about 105 degrees. So we're not going right down into a 90-degree angle chair. What did I say?
Hips and shoulders are
touching the floor. Thank you. Touching the wall. Glad you're paying attention. So your feet are obviously touching the floor. The knees are about 105 degrees. And we're holding this E-cise for 2 minutes. So you can turn your palms up onto your thighs. Allow the elbows to come towards the wall so that the shoulders are rolling back. So the upper back and the sacrum of your pelvis is touching the wall. Good. So that is the air bench. And we are holding that exercise or E-cise here for 2 minutes. Thank you, Ian. All right. So that completes our 10 exercises for the posture assessment specialist exam for the functional mobility E-cises. I'm Laura Worf, and thank you to Ian. Bye for now.